My ex lied that I hit her when I caught her cheating, so I collected proof quietly and let the truth end her perfect reputation. I'm a 30-year-old guy, and for a long time I thought I'd met the love of my life. Her name was Emily. Smart, beautiful, confident in a way that made every room tilt toward her. From the outside, people said we were the perfect couple. The kind everyone looked at and said, "That's what real love looks like." I used to believe it too. Our pictures filled social media. Weekend hikes, dinner dates, cute captions about building our forever. I didn't realize then that we weren't building anything real. We were curating an image. Emily had a way of making everything look effortless. Her clothes, her words, her success. But behind that polish there was something else. Something sharp. She cared deeply about how people saw us, to the point where every minor argument turned into a performance about who was right. If I forgot to compliment her outfit before we went out, she'd smile through clenched teeth and say, "You don't have to embarrass me in front of people. You know." Then she'd laugh it off like she was joking. I wanted to believe she was. I worked as a graphic designer for a mid-size firm. Steady job, nothing flashy. She worked in PR, which fit her perfectly. Image, control, presentation. Sometimes she'd drop little comments like, "You should push yourself more. Don't you ever want to be someone?" It stung, but I brushed it off. I told myself she was just ambitious, that she wanted me to grow. I ignored the unease in my chest, the way her compliments always came with edges. I told myself every relationship had its flaws. Every time she smiled for a picture, I convinced myself that meant she was happy. I didn't know it then, but that smile, the one everyone else adored, was the first mask she ever wore for me. And soon, I'd find out what she was hiding behind it. Things started shifting slowly, so subtly that I almost convinced myself it was in my head. Emily began working later than usual, saying her PR firm had taken on a demanding new client. "You wouldn't understand," she'd sigh, typing furiously on her phone, the glow from the screen lighting up her face long after midnight. She started locking her phone, keeping it face down at dinner. When I asked if something was wrong, she'd let out this exasperated laugh. "God, you're being paranoid again. I'm just busy, okay?" At first, I tried to be understanding. I brought her coffee during her late nights, made dinner for two even when she didn't show up. But every gesture started feeling one-sided, like I was auditioning for a part in a movie she'd already recast. Her tone grew sharper, colder. "You're too sensitive," she'd say whenever I tried to talk about how distant she'd become. Yet, when we were around friends, she was all smiles and public affection, whispering, "See, we're fine." The contrast was maddening. I'd lie awake next to her, hearing the faint buzz of her phone under the pillow, pretending not to notice. Once, while folding laundry, I found a hotel receipt tucked into her coat pocket. When I asked, she rolled her eyes. "It's from a work event. You're seriously checking my clothes now?" I wanted to believe her, and part of me did, because the alternative was too painful to face. But something inside me shifted that night. The doubt stopped whispering and started screaming. I couldn't shake the feeling that our perfect relationship was cracking beneath the surface. Still, I told myself not to jump to conclusions. I wasn't ready to admit that I was already standing in the ruins of what I thought was love. And soon, one ordinary night, those ruins would start burning. It was a Thursday when everything finally snapped into focus. I was at home finishing up a freelance project when my phone buzzed. A message from my buddy Mark. "Hey man, isn't this Emily?" Attached was a photo of her sitting in a dimly lit restaurant, laughing, her hand resting on another man's wrist. The man was Ryan, her boss. My stomach dropped so fast it felt like gravity had turned against me. I stared at the picture, willing it to be a misunderstanding, some weird angle or coincidence. But her necklace, the same one I'd given her last Christmas, glinted in the photo like proof I couldn't deny. I waited until she came home around midnight. She walked in like nothing was wrong, humming softly, smelling faintly of wine and perfume. "Rough night at the office?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She froze, her eyes darting to mine. What's that supposed to mean? "I saw you, Emily, you and Ryan. You were holding his hand." Her expression hardened instantly. The warmth vanished from her face. Are you spying on me now? She snapped. That's disgusting. I felt my throat tighten. Just tell me the truth. Are you seeing him? She scoffed and crossed her arms. You're insane. You've always been insecure, and now you're inventing things because you can't handle a strong woman talking to her boss. It wasn't denial. It was attack. Every word hit like a slap. I stood there, numb, as she grabbed her purse and said coldly, You're the toxic one, not me. You need help. Then she stormed out the door, slamming it behind her so hard the picture frames rattled on the wall. I remember staring at that door for hours, waiting for her to come back, to explain, to lie better, anything. But she never did. And the next morning, the real nightmare began. The next morning, I woke up to a storm I never saw coming. My phone buzzed nonstop, texts, missed calls, notifications flooding in like waves. At first, I thought maybe Emily had decided to talk. But when I opened my messages, my blood ran cold. Screenshots, posts, comments. Emily had uploaded a black and white photo of herself looking devastated, with a caption that read, No one deserves to be hit. Healing takes time, but I'll be okay. My name wasn't mentioned, but it didn't have to be. Everyone knew. Our friends, our co-workers. Even my aunt texted asking, Please tell me this isn't true. I just sat there staring at my phone, trying to understand how the woman I once loved could twist reality so easily. By noon, people started choosing sides. Her friends flooded her comments with sympathy. You're so strong. Proud of you for speaking up. My friends were quieter, unsure of what to believe. I called her over and over, desperate for an explanation. When she finally answered, her voice was calm, detached. Emily, what are you doing? I asked, shaking. You brought this on yourself, she said softly. You tried to control me. You scared me. Scared you? Emily, I'm done talking about this, she interrupted. You'll hear from my lawyer soon. The line went dead. I sat there in stunned silence, heart hammering in my chest. It didn't feel real. Within hours, I went from boyfriend to monster in everyone's eyes. My boss called, saying they needed to investigate before letting me back at work. I felt the walls close in, like the world had swallowed me whole. The truth didn't matter anymore. She controlled the story, and she knew exactly how to weaponize it. But even then, I had no idea just how far she'd go to bury me alive. The fallout was instant and brutal. Within days, I was living in a kind of social quarantine. Friends stopped calling. Group chats went quiet. Even my boss, who'd once trusted me with major projects, asked me to take a break while things settle. The look in his eyes said it all. He didn't believe me. No one did. Emily's posts kept rolling out, vague but devastating. Some scars don't fade. Healing in silence. Each one crafted to make her look like a survivor. I tried defending myself at first. I texted people, explaining, begging them to listen. Most didn't respond. The few who did wrote things like, We don't know what really happened, man. Maybe you should just stay quiet for a while. That crushed me more than the silence. I wasn't just losing my job and reputation. I was losing my entire circle. At home, everything reminded me of her, the coffee mug she used, the perfume lingering on the pillow. Nights stretched endlessly. I'd scroll through her social media, watching her post inspirational quotes and smiling selfies, while I sat in the dark trying to convince myself I wasn't the monster she'd made me out to be. One evening, my mom called. Her voice trembled. Honey, if there's any truth to what she said, you need to get help. I wanted to scream, but all I managed was, Mom, I never touched her. She went quiet for a long time before whispering, I hope that's true. That broke something in me. When even your own mother doubts you, it feels like the world's gravity has turned against you. For days, I stayed silent. I didn't eat much, didn't sleep. I thought about deleting my accounts, quitting my job, moving somewhere no one knew my name, but beneath all that despair, something darker started to take shape. A quiet, steady fire. If she wanted a story, I'd give her one. The truth. Unfiltered. And this time, I wouldn't let her control the narrative. It happened late one night, maybe 2 a.m., when I couldn't sleep and decided to scroll through old files on my laptop. I came across a folder labeled Home Security. Months earlier, Emily had insisted we install a camera by the front door because you can't be too careful these days. I almost laughed at the irony. Out of desperation more than hope, I opened the folder, and there it was. Footage from the night everything fell apart. My heart started pounding as I scrubbed through the video. I saw myself sitting on the couch, exhausted, waiting for her to come home. She walked in drunk, stumbled, and started shouting. The argument escalated fast. She shoved me first, then pointed at her own arm before storming out. In that moment, she'd already written her script. My stomach twisted as I realized she'd planned it. The proof she'd used to make everyone believe I'd hurt her was nothing more than her own performance. That discovery lit something inside me. I copied the footage, backed it up 3 times, and started collecting everything. Texts, voice messages, even old emails where she admitted to acting during fights to get her way. Then I reached out to a private investigator, a quiet, older man who specialized in digital truth recovery. He didn't ask for details, just said, "If she's lying, we'll find out." Over the next week, I gathered pieces like shards of glass, careful not to cut myself with hope. The investigator found what I'd suspected but dreaded. Emily had been seeing Ryan for months, staying in hotels under fake names her company had booked. The receipts, photos, and timestamps all lined up perfectly. For the first time in weeks, I smiled, not because I was happy, but because I finally had something real. Proof, undeniable, unedited truth, and if Emily had built her world on lies, then I was about to pull the foundation right out from under her. For the first time in months, I stopped reacting. I stopped calling, stopped defending, stopped explaining myself. I realized every word I said only fed her version of events. So I went quiet, completely silent. On the outside, it looked like I'd given up. But behind that stillness, I was building something meticulous, something patient. Emily, meanwhile, seemed to thrive in the attention. Her posts grew bolder, more performative. She shared pictures with Ryan at charity events, captioned things like, "Finally feeling safe again." It was surreal watching the woman who once begged me to trust her now, posing as the victim of my supposed abuse. But every post, every smug caption, every lie she wrapped in pastel filters became ammunition for me. I made sure to act normal whenever mutual friends reached out. I even congratulated her publicly on a work award, just to keep the illusion that I'd moved on. The calmer I seemed, the more careless she became. My investigator kept feeding me information quietly. Hotel bookings, private messages, even security footage from her office parking lot that showed her and Ryan sneaking into his car late at night. Every piece fit perfectly into the story she'd sworn was real. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about justice, about truth, about reclaiming the life she'd stolen from me. Still, I knew timing was everything. If I moved too soon, she'd spin it again. Cry on camera, twist the narrative, play the victim twice over. I needed to wait until the mask slipped on its own. And judging by how fast she was climbing her own pedestal, I knew it wouldn't be long before she gave me the perfect moment to knock it all down. All I had to do was stay silent, keep smiling, and wait for her to hand me the match herself. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, they did. I came home one afternoon to find a court summons taped to my door. Emily had filed for a restraining order claiming I'd been harassing her online and spying on her through hidden cameras. The audacity nearly made me laugh, if it hadn't hit so hard. My hands trembled as I read the words domestic violence and ongoing threat. It felt like someone had branded me with something I couldn't wash off. I met with a lawyer, but his first question gutted me. "Do you have any proof that contradicts her claims?" I did, but the idea of exposing everything, dragging this private hell into the public eye, terrified me. Still, I couldn't stay silent anymore. I submitted my evidence, though the court date was weeks away. Each day leading up to it felt like walking through fog, waiting for a train I couldn't see but could already hear coming. When the hearing finally came, Emily arrived in a white dress, innocent, fragile, trembling on cue. Ryan sat behind her, his arm protectively on her chair. My chest burned with rage and disbelief. When the judge asked her to speak, her tears came instantly. "He used to stand outside my work," she said softly, "just staring." I was terrified. My lawyer glanced at me, silently urging patience. I wanted to scream, to tell the room how fake it all was. But all I could do was clench my jaw as everyone stared at her, believing every word. When the session ended, I walked out feeling hollow. Even with all the evidence, I felt small, like truth didn't matter anymore. That night, sitting in my car outside the courthouse, I broke down completely. Not out of anger, but exhaustion. I realized I'd hit the lowest point of my life. But, as I sat there, I also realized something else. Rock bottom meant there was nowhere left to fall, and that meant it was finally time to rise. The next hearing was different. My lawyer told me to stay calm, to trust the process. "We're going to dismantle her story, piece by piece," he said quietly before we walked in. I nodded, even though my stomach was twisting itself into knots. Emily was already seated, pretending to cry while whispering to her attorney. The performance had worked once, but this time I wasn't walking in blind. When my lawyer began, he played the home security footage. The room went completely still. The video showed Emily storming in drunk, shoving me, then dramatically leaving the house after faking the injury she'd later claim I caused. The judge leaned forward. You could see confusion, then realization, wash over his face. Then came the screenshots of her texts, laughing about how easy it is to play victim to a friend. And finally, the investigator's evidence. Photos of her and Ryan together during the very night she claimed I was stalking her. Emily's face drained of color. Her lawyer stammered, asking for a recess, but the judge refused. "Continue," he said firmly. By the end, every lie she'd spun unraveled in public view. I watched her crumble in real time, her voice shaking, her eyes darting around the courtroom, searching for an escape that didn't exist. When it was over, the judge dismissed her restraining order and warned her about filing false claims. My lawyer didn't smile. Neither did I. There was no victory in this, only relief. Outside the courthouse, Emily tried to approach me. Her voice was small, almost panicked. "Please, let's just fix this privately," she whispered. I looked at her for a long moment before saying, "You built this lie. Now live in it." Then I walked away, feeling the weight lift from my chest for the first time in months. But the truth had only just started to surface, and soon the whole world would see it. 2 weeks after the court hearing, I thought the storm might finally die down. I'd cleared my name legally, and that should have been enough. But then Emily's world began to unravel on its own, faster, louder, and far more publicly than I ever planned. It started when my friend Jenna, an investigative blogger, reached out. She'd followed my case quietly and told me, "People need to know how easily reputations get destroyed by lies." I hesitated, but I didn't have to do anything. She said, "Don't worry. I'm not naming names, just facts." A few days later, her article went live. It was titled "The Dangerous Power of False Victimhood." It used court transcripts, public evidence, and screenshots that were all legally accessible. Within hours, readers connected the dots. Comments flooded in. "Wait, isn't this about Emily from Company Name? Her posts don't line up with this timeline." And then, like wildfire, the internet turned. Emily's carefully constructed image shattered overnight. People started reposting her old healing journey captions, mocking them side by side with the exposed lies. Her company, which had built campaigns around female empowerment, released a statement saying they were reviewing internal matters. Ryan deactivated his social media the same night. By morning, Emily had turned off comments, but it was too late. The screenshots were everywhere. I didn't say a word. I didn't like, share, or post anything. Silence became my final weapon. Watching her facade collapse wasn't satisfying in the way I expected. It was surreal. I'd spent months drowning in humiliation, and now she was the one gasping for air. By the end of the week, she'd lost her job, her followers, and her sponsors. And for the first time in a long, long time, the truth finally felt louder than her lies. A month passed before I heard from Emily again. She called from an unknown number, her voice trembling, stripped of the confidence that once filled every word she spoke. "Can we please talk?" she asked. I almost hung up, but something in me wanted closure. We met at a quiet cafe downtown, the same one where we used to plan our future. Funny how the same place can feel haunted once you know the truth. She looked different, tired, pale, and hollow-eyed. "I lost everything," she whispered, staring into her untouched coffee. "The company let me go. Ryan moved away. People hate me." Her eyes watered, and for a second I almost felt pity. Almost. Then she said, "You could fix this, you know. If you just posted something, say we worked things out privately. It would help both of us," I laughed quietly. "You want me to clean up your mess? After you tried to destroy me?" She looked desperate. "Please, I was hurt." "No, Emily," I interrupted. "You were caught." There was nothing left to say after that. I stood up, left a few dollars for the coffee she never drank, and walked out without looking back. That was my real revenge. Not screaming, not exposing her further, just refusing to play her game. Over the next few weeks, my life slowly returned to something resembling normal. Friends started reaching out again, some apologizing, some too ashamed to. I accepted their words but never forgot their silence when I needed them most. My boss reinstated me, and for the first time in months, I slept through the night without waking in panic. Emily vanished from social media entirely. Her perfect world had imploded, not because I destroyed it, but because it was never real to begin with. And in that quiet aftermath, I realized revenge hadn't freed me. The truth had. It's been over a year now, and sometimes I still wake up expecting to see a new lie about me online. But the noise is gone. The chaos has faded into memory, replaced by something I didn't have before: clarity. Looking back, I realize Emily didn't just betray me. She forced me to confront how easily I'd built my identity around someone else's approval. I was so desperate to be seen as the good guy that I let her shape how I saw myself. Never again. I don't hate her anymore. Hate takes energy, and I wasted enough of that trying to defend myself from someone who never cared about truth. What I feel now is distance. Like she was a storm I survived, one that left wreckage but also cleaned the air. I've started therapy, rebuilding not just my reputation but my sense of self-worth. My lawyer introduced me to a men's support group for false accusation victims, and hearing their stories reminded me how close I came to losing everything. So now I help others document, prepare, and protect themselves. Turning my pain into purpose became my quiet redemption. Sometimes people ask if I ever wish I'd ended Emily publicly, but the truth is, she ended herself. Lies are like rot. They spread fast, look powerful, but they always collapse under their own weight. I didn't need to destroy her. I just had to step back and let her lies meet gravity. The other night, I found one of our old photos while cleaning. A perfect smile, two people pretending to be in love. I stared at it for a moment before tossing it in the trash. Not out of bitterness, but peace. She taught me something she never intended to. The truth doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just waits, quiet, patient, and when it finally speaks, it doesn't need to shout to be heard.